Good evening, Mission Control. TheRealMartian here. Well, tonight we're going to do an experiment. If you recall in one of my earlier videos, I had a problem with the microgreens. Specifically, I had a problem with the fact that I couldn't get the roots to separate from the grow media. We don't want to use dirt. We're trying to use the rock that we have, try to grow it hydroponically. We might be looking at a different grow media, but we're definitely going to stick with the hydroponics. That's a must-have requirement. So tonight we're going to take some subscriber suggestions, and we're actually going to try to run some of the grow media with the roots in it through a cement mixer. So my neighbors graciously allowed me to borrow their cement mixer. I fixed it up, got it running. It's been sitting outside for a while, so we're going to use it tonight. So this may not be perfect like a brand new one, but I think it's going to tell us if we should invest the money to get a better one, maybe that has variable speeds or things like that. So here's the game plan for tonight. I got a few different trays with different levels of degradation, of decomposition of the grow trays with the roots and the rocks in them. So let me show you those real fast. These are freshly cut just today. So these are the ones we really care about. How are these going to react? But let's say you fall behind and life gets in the way and you can't get to it for a while, but you don't want to lose the grow media. These are some more dry ones that have been sitting out kind of in the sun for a while. They're very dry, somewhat brittle. So, but let's say you're even lazier than that and you left some out in the actual weather to where they're nasty, icky, slimy, ew. Let's see how those react. So we're going to do at least 3 different tests tonight and see which ones separate the best or don't separate at all. So I have a hypothesis in this. I think that the cement mixer is going to separate them, but maybe not as well as we hoped. I kind of wish I had better hope for it, but we're going to see and test. I also think that our grow media might be a little too large for separation. So let's get started though. Let's get into the experiment and see how it goes. So we're going to try one of the old trays first. This thing's slimy. It's been sitting out in the sun. These black things here, these are pea seeds that they sprouted and we're able to harvest, but they're still there and they've turned black because they're rotting. So let's throw those in. So you can already see the grow media is separating from the root. But I had this idea before we got started, so I'm kind of prepared for this. I think if you throw some rocks in there, I got some old cinder blocks that are broken. Throw those in there, they kind of help agitate it. So we're going to see how well those do. You can see the roots already wrapping around the main spindle. That might be a problem. It's probably hard to see on camera, but we have a lot of the black pea seeds are in the grow rock. But boy, oh boy, you can see the root clump is basically right here. Let's see if we can't get it out. Look at that. That's not too bad. I'd like to see better. This is what my hypothesis was, that I'd have some media left behind. So this is the old, slimy, wet stuff. Let me try to get the rest out here without pulling myself. There we go. So remember what it was, and now look what it is. And a little bit of loss isn't horrible, and if I shake it, I can still get some more out of it. So that's not bad. There we go. It went from a whole tray just down to this. Not bad. This is a dried mat. It's been out all winter, but it's dried. A lot crispier, not as slimy. It still has the same rotting out piece there, so let's throw it in. time is a factor on this as well, right? We don't want this to take forever to do. We want to be able to basically throw a whole bunch of them in here and see what happens. Now we can see that one's definitely having a harder time. It's not as moist, so it looks like moisture content is definitely a big part of this. The drier they are, the harder they are to actually fall apart, which is actually kind of counterintuitive. You would think that the drier they were, the more brittle they would be, and the harder it would be for them, or the easier it would be for them to fall apart. But actually it looks like when you get them dry, they don't really want to fall apart. So that's been in there almost about the same amount of time. And that's not doing a great job. So dry is definitely not. These are the freshly cut ones, cut just today and harvested, delivered to customer. You can see the pea seeds on it are still good. They haven't turned black. So let's throw this one in there and have high hopes for it. Here we go. Okay, we're seeing some good action here, some good separation. Look at that. Those are solid roots that we could feed to the animals, actually. That would be excellent. We still got some rocks in there, so now it's a matter of how long do we need to let it stay in there and get the roots separated without having a lot of roots left over in the rocks, because that would be bad. All right, that's a pretty good separation. I can shake it out, get some more out, and we'll have to collect it off the ground, but all in all, that's pretty nice. Kids, don't shove your hands in there like what I'm doing. Turn it off. Okay, now I am noticing that at the back, the roots are wrapping around the actual axle back there. It may not be a huge problem, but let's go ahead and throw a few of them in there at one time and see how well it's separated. Okay, so the last two that I threw in there are all fresh, so we'll see how well they do. Alright, so I think this is a pretty good test. My hypothesis is right. It didn't separate as good as I wanted, but I honestly don't think anything would have. It's pretty hard to get good separation on this stuff. You can see we still have some clay rocks left in here, and but for the most part, this is all roots that I could throw to the animals. Now, another part of what I wanted to test is, will water level impact this? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tilt this guy up, and we're going to put some water in there and see if we can't float the roots. So I'll be back once I get the hoses. So we're adding water to this in hopes that the water will actually float the roots, and we can rotate everything and the roots will come to the top of the water. That's what we're hoping for. We're also going to have to wash these rocks, and remember those seeds are in there as well. So it's my hope that the seeds, the roots, and all the dirt and the rock will all separate here during this process. So dirt will go to the bottom, rocks will be in the middle, and the roots and everything will float to the top. So we already got some bad news here. Make sure you can see that. Right here, this hydroclay stuff floats. Supposedly, if it sits in water long enough, it won't float. So we've added water to the mixture, and our goal was to hopefully see the roots float to the top. Looks like the water actually helps with the separation process, a lot more like a slurry, but I'm not seeing the flotation that I want, so I'm going to add some more water. Let me show you here what it looks like if you put it straight up. So remember, the goal, we had hoped that by adding water, the roots would float. And that is not the case. The hydroclay is floating. Now, we had this same problem, if you remember earlier video. This is what happened in my office experiment almost 2 years ago, is that hydroclay would actually float. And it would create a breathing motion inside of the grow bed. And that's one of the major reasons why we're actually using lava rock in the aquaponic system that we currently have. It's because the hydroclay does float. Now we're just using the hydroclay because it's a really great medium for the microgreens. At least it's the best one we've found so far. And that is because it allows the seeds to get into it and the roots to establish on something in a little more dynamic way than just having a root mat down, which we tried and we didn't have as good success with as we do with the hydroclay. Well, that was fun doing that experiment and seeing the 3 different types of decomposition that have occurred, you know, the fresh stuff, the dried stuff, and the really yucky, moist, slimy stuff, and how it all reacted through the separation process with the cement mixer. Cement mixer definitely shows promise, but there's some things to consider in it. First, the grow media, you know, if it was smaller, like 1/8 inch or smaller, it wouldn't go through the slits in the grow trays. That's where the water comes up from the bottom, because right now our system is not optimized for microgreens. I'm going to come back to that, but let's finish this thought on the grow media. So the grow media, if it was a lot smaller, it would be a lot easier to separate, but you'd still have seeds in it, those black seeds. Now the fresh seeds, they actually came out okay. You just can't use water, obviously. The whole water idea was an epic fail. So definitely don't want to use water in it at all. This whole thing just screams, you know, why in the world are you doing it this way? And there's a reason. First, you have to understand that the system that you've seen on TheRealMartian was not designed for microgreens. It was designed for a family of 4, production size family of 4, more like 4 families of 4 for what we're doing here. All on purpose. Again, if you remember, we want to build the habitat, get it going, and then build a second one as our second prototype with all the lessons learned from the first one in it. And we didn't want to constrain size on the first one because actually in this case making things bigger is easier than making them smaller. Less expensive. Making things smaller costs a lot of money, and we're seeing that because a lot of the parts that we need just don't exist, so we're going to have to custom build them. And that's cha-ching. So we built this system to grow full-size vegetables. That's why the grow beds are as big as they are. That's why we only have 2 decks. That's why the lights are spaced the way that they are. And microgreens were an afterthought. We got to the point where like, hey, we actually need more money to pay for all this, so why don't we get this thing making money sooner rather than later so that we can actually pay for it. And that entered, you know, we needed a cash crop. And so we're doing microgreens. And in doing that, you know, we've come to realize a few things. First, microgreens, they'll grow on grow mats. And if you've seen our previous episode, you know we've tried that. But when the water comes from the bottom of the grow tray, the seeds actually lift up and they distribute. And it creates bunching and problems like that. So it's no good. You also get too much water when the water comes from the bottom. So we chose to go with something that we knew, which was the hydroclay. That's what we did in our experiment 2 years ago. and it worked, but it just wasn't optimum for the situation. But in the microgreen trays, it actually works kind of okay. But then that led to, well, we're going to do this on the production scale, separating those rocks. You know, those rocks are expensive. After you buy enough of them, you don't want to just throw them away, so you want to get them back, and that's why we're trying this separation experiment. But really what this screams for is a redo of the grow lane to be optimized for microgreens, and we're going to do that this year. So I'm going to put some designs together and put them out there for you guys to kind of come in and talk about. Give your opinions, give your ideas. If anybody wants to help fabricate stuff, we're going to actually probably definitely have to do some fabrication, so I'd love to have your help. 3D printing, if anyone's interested in helping out with 3D printing, probably definitely use some help there for this redo of the shells. In the meantime, that's future state, right? We're gonna redo the shells. We're gonna optimize for microgreens. We're gonna have water come from the top. We can go back to grow mats. That'll solve some of the bigger problems. But in the meantime, we still have production. We still have customers. So we're gonna have to deal with rock separation. A few ideas that I had. One, the cement mixer works, but you know, if it's fresh material, I think we can probably be okay. We'll just have to put it through a few more times and give it a try and pick out anything that's left behind. And then you still have to clean all the rock. So that's not a small thing that you have to go through. The next thing you have to consider, or that could be considered, is when pea or seeds are left behind, is we are going to get chickens. We could actually put this out on a big tray and let them peck through it and take away that old stuff if they would eat it, and that's a variable as well. Or we could go to a different grow media like coarse sand and see how it works. We could also just try to reuse the grow media even with the pea seeds in it, because if you remember, we do have red wiggler worms in our grow beds, so even if things decompose, by theory, those worms are supposed to be there to help kind of clean up the mess. So those are some of the options as I see them. Curious to know what your thoughts are. I think I'm going to stop for tonight. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for everyone who recommended the cement mixer. I hope you see I actually do listen to what you guys say and I try it out. And then if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Hit subscribe, and if you want to get notified when we have new videos, hit that little bell to the left to subscribe and you will. In the meantime, everyone, this is The Real Martian. Out.